We're joined by Dr. Urvashi Sahni. She is the CEO of Study Hall. Professor, if we could begin with what you understand the purpose of education to be and how that ties into the organization that you work for.
I know, thanks. That's my favorite question, actually. The way we've defined our purpose, the purpose of education is one, we believe that the goal of education is not just to know, but to learn to live. Secondly, I believe it's to enable people to find answers to the question, who am I and how am I related to the universe and everyone in it? And everyone includes animate, inanimate, everything, right? And so I feel that the goal of education really is to know who you are, how you're located in the whole universe, where you are, and that includes where in the whole power structure you are, geographically and socially where you're located, to understand that. And also then to understand your relationship with other people, with the inanimate world, so to speak, the mountains and the oceans and the trees and the sky and the birds and the animals. What relationship do you have? What responsibility do you have? What connection do you have? And even with other people, all people. What is your relationship? Is it an equal one? Is it an unequal one? Is it one of love? Is it one of hate? Right? And then who exactly are you? Where do you place yourself? And I don't know if you're going to, I don't want to jump the gun, but I actually came to founded my school 34 years ago as a reaction to education that defined the goals very, very narrowly. But, looked at it in a very decontextualized skills sense that you learn academically, you learn very intellectually, cognitively, almost disconnected facts. And what emerged, I was a very good student, by the way, and I went to a very good school. I was like top of my class all the time. And so I succeeded in the system, right? But at the same time, I really felt, heck, what did I learn? That I don't know that a lot of my existential questions were left unanswered. And as a woman growing up in India, one of the most important lessons that I wish my education had taught me, and it didn't, was that I was an equal person and that I had a right to use all these academic skills for my life, to be the driver of my own life, to work for my own flourishing and not just fit into a social role that had been pre-decided for me. I said, education really doesn't do what it could do. It's not living up to its potential. And that's when I started looking at other models. And I also had a master's of philosophy by then. And it was through that. So I really started the school as a response to an education system that I felt had very narrow goals, only preparing you for a workforce, only geared towards passing exams, getting a certificate, and then moving on to a college, and then finding a job. And everything else the important questions, important existential questions, they all just get left unanswered.
So, in a nutshell, that you're saying that education should be about, building a complete personality. It's about your relationship with the wider world and the people around you. And you're saying that an education system that doesn't value those kinds of things, that's essentially what you're trying to take issue with, and of course on the gender side specifically.
Example, let me tell you, that I gave you one example. The other one is even in terms of the traditional subjects you learn.
Yeah.
Like, let's say geography, let's say history. How often, I don't know, you're very young. I don't think things have changed that much even now. That's the sad part of it. Okay. Is that, I know in my children's time it hadn't, and in my granddaughter's time, well, maybe a little. Right. Is that, how often did you find that your geography lesson really connected to you as a person? How often did your history lesson really illuminate your life as a person in terms of where you were in history? and taught you a lesson of life. How often did you find that a lesson of math really taught you something about life? Eventually, you're left. You have to live your life, you know.
Mm.
And which is why people are heading to therapists and to gurus and depressed, dysfunctional, because everything is so, it alienates you from yourself. I find very small children, in fact, are very connected to themselves. And as they grow older, they get more alienated because in school, their education, the clear message is that, hey, just learn. It's very external. There's almost no looking inward, and there's almost no building that connection. And actually, unless we all feel a sense of being at home in the universe, being at home in our own skins, there is, you're not going to live successfully. You might have successful careers, quote unquote, and then you might end up with a big therapy bill and lots of depression drugs. So you don't know, and a dysfunctional family, you don't know. Right? So why are we wasting so many years of our children's lives and not treating them as whole persons with emotions, with feelings, with a need for values, with a need to really make sense of the world in which they live, and learn lessons of love and learn lessons of democracy, of equality, and of respecting the universe and the environment too. Why are we not taking the time to, and you can do it while you teach geography, you only have to teach it differently. You can do it while you teach history. I'm not saying that you need to throw everything out. I'm saying you can, but you need to position the person at the center. So when they say child-centered education, what do you mean? Which means you must put the person at the center of it. Right?
I was wondering if you could elaborate a little bit more on this thing, because we're moving into the second major question, which is what you think needs to change fundamentally, structurally. And so when it comes to your organization and the work you've done, the articles you've published, and more broadly speaking, the kinds of things that you advocate for, what do you think needs to change structurally within the Indian education system? What kinds of organizations should people be working alongside? Who should you be lobbying? Those kinds of questions. What do you think really needs to change?
The curriculum needs to change. This crisis has definitely taught you that there is no need to just transfer facts from books into children's brains and then out in the test and then on with the wind. I think those are available at the click of a button, and so you don't really need to do that. What you do need to do is help children learn information processing skills, teach them how to make the important connections, right? Most importantly, teach them how to make the important connection with themselves and their own lives, and then make the important connections with the business of living. So I would definitely change the focus of the curriculum from a mere transfer of fact. And you know, everything in the world has changed. And I'm 65. And I'm telling you, I remember the first, when we first got a telephone. I remember the radio. I remember the first black and white TV. I remember the man landing on the moon. I remember the first computer, the internet. I was the second subscriber in Lucknow. You know, things have changed so much. Classrooms haven't changed. I mean, don't get it. I just don't get it. I mean, and we are supposed to be preparing kids for the future. Right? I would definitely shift the focus to life. I would shift the focus. The curriculum must put the children at the center, whole, and have a more holistic. We say holistic, but we don't get what that means. It means inviting children whole as whole persons with their whole lives into the classroom, welcoming them, and then addressing their whole life. Not just one part of, you know, and once again, to understand a whole person has feelings. They have a social dimension, they have an aesthetic dimension, they have a cognitive dimension. They have many things. And so to address all of those parts. And like I mentioned earlier, I really believe that given that the hate-filled world we live in everywhere, we do need, and you know, we have democracies, none of them are functioning well because we've never educated our children for democracy. Lessons of social justice, lessons of equality. and put them at par with lessons of math, science, history. We've done that in our organization. Teach, and equality, we focused a lot on gender equality so far. We're dealing with caste equality, we're trying to deal with all kinds. To teach lessons of love and equality, it's the same. If you treat someone as equal, you can't help but love and respect them. Right? And a love for the climate, and for other animals, they all deserve the same kind of love and respect. Put all of that center stage. Now when people address it, it's kind of, okay, yeah, we're doing this, and yes, we're doing that. But that the exams are all on math and science and history, and they're taught in the exact same way. So one on critical analytical skills in being able to critically examine the social and political structure that you live in, the traditions that you are holding so dear, the caste system, your own religion, the whole idea of why is my religion supposed to be the best, and why should I be naturally suspicious and almost in hate with others. Being able to critically examine even the political structures, power, talk about power. All these are important things, and we have just not addressed them intellectually in school the way they should be, and children are perfectly capable of doing that. And there are a variety of techniques you can use to do that in an age-appropriate manner. And that is why we have such a dysfunctional world. Never mind families. What about the world? There's people are hating each other. Look what's going on in America. Well, that's nothing. Look at the way caste has played itself out in India throughout and continues to do so. Look how patriarchy is still in place when it has no place in a democracy, and how cruel it is to women. Look at the sexual crimes against women in India. So, and education levels have gone up. Why is this not gone down? Because we never ever addressed any of these. Right-wing forces are rising everywhere. What have we been doing in schools? Why have we not been addressing this? Why have we not been equipping children to become good democratic citizens, to become good human beings? So I would shift the focus of the curriculum there. Then, of course, pedagogy. Pedagogy cannot be this, I stand and I lecture to you. The teacher does not have all the answers. And now with the internet, you have many teachers. Wonderful. But we can co-construct knowledge, and we can do that in dialogue with each other. And that will happen when you're not just trying to dish out something that is prefab and hand it over to them. If you teach science, then you should teach children to think like scientists. Say, yeah, Newton was this great guy, and look what he did. And let's see what he was thinking and why was he thinking like that. And so was the guy who made the atom bomb. What the hell was he thinking? Let's find that out too. You're teaching history, teach them to think like historians, teach them to think like geographers, but to have a geographical imagination, a historical imagination, a mathematical imagination. Okay. So I think I would change the way we teach. The pedagogy has to change. And I would definitely use a critical pedagogy. And again, I would make social justice really the bedrock, very important. And social and emotional learning, so that the self, very important at the center. In terms of who is going to do all of this, of course, we need national curricular framework to change as well. Because if the national curriculum framework is expecting certain things, then the schools are going to fall in line, or you'll have some outliers like all of us. And how does that have a wider impact? We need to be able to, we've been advocating, but we need to have a collective advocacy and participate in framing the national curricular framework so that there is a shift. And by the way, people are now thinking that, hey, we need to change. That's the quote unquote good news about crises. It forces you to read. Like, for example, NCRT, for I don't know, I think over a decade, I have been clamoring to get gender education to become a compulsory part of the official curriculum. But now, apparently, NCRT, while it's revising, I read somewhere that they're saying they want to make gender education. So immediately, I offered my services. I said, we have curriculum, we're happy to lend it to you. It might help the direction, and we'll participate in it. So my point is, there are many organizations all over, and these are normally non-governmental organizations, the alternative schools. There are a million models, and there should be. Those should continue. These are the innovation hubs. But I think the government would be well served to take the offerings, take lessons, learn lessons from these people. And they've succeeded in many ways. They have succeeded. They're showing the direction. I mean, come on, John Dewey was this great uh, educator. He had an experimental school. Rabindranath Tagore had one. Pondicherry has one. There are so many examples, right? Why are we not learning from those and making them part of the mainstream? Why are they only always outliers? Because then they serve a very small population. But when you make them at this, put them at the center. And then, of course, we need community-owned school systems. You need many, see, it takes a village to educate a child. But then you have to empower the village to do that. So you need definitely to have communities engaged, and probably one size will not fit all, even in our own organization, because we work with very different kinds of populations. So we have really tailored our curriculum to meet the needs of the different kinds. In the rural areas, we want them to understand more about the environment and see how they can develop it. What are the problems there that they can solve? With girls, we have a very strong focus on gender and deconstruct patriarchy. Even with boys, we do that. Okay. So we want them to know that they're equal. That's the most important lesson they need to learn. And they're autonomous, they're citizens, they have every right that the Constitution guarantees them, and they should be learning to assert themselves through that. We think that's a really important lesson for them to learn. So similarly, I think there will be different kinds of, you will have to customize it. And then if you give the power to communities, they will know how to make that system work for them. What it needs is a shift away from just preparation for livelihoods. In any case now, there are no predetermined livelihoods anymore. It's all become very fluid. Right? And I don't think the best education system can prepare you. You will be learning a lot on the job, which, by the way, here's the secret. Everybody has always done. Even doctors. It's only when they start working in hospitals or they're doing that 1 year internship that they're going totally crazy. They say, God, nobody taught me anything. And that's when they really begin to learn. Teachers, and they're flung into the classroom. This is the heck, I'm trying to remember what I learned. Yeah. Everybody, everyone. Okay. So we need to understand, let's stop doing that. Let's teach them all the fundamental basic skills that they will need. Life skills, thinking skills. And actually, if you look at the category, there's a Hilton Peregrino report which has come out with a list of 21st century skills. So they have cognitive competencies, they have intrapersonal competencies, and then interpersonal competencies. Okay, and it's very, very comprehensive. It takes care of everything. And so you need to focus on that and not on information. And of course, technology now has become almost like, oh man, the savior. If we didn't have technology, I don't know how we would have survived these 3 months. Or we will continue to survive, try and survive, especially in terms of education. So I think we do need to look at getting rid of the digital divide, because it has thrown that up more than anything else. That it's all right to say, oh, schools have gone online. Yeah, there should be a line to go on to. And at the end, somebody should have a device. They don't have that. I know how much we have struggled with our poorer population. Now we've started smartphone libraries, we started digital friends so that they can form a little cluster and teach them everything we can do. We've been teaching them on phone calls, on voice messages, telling them to share so that there's one device and there are 6 users. So it's on speakerphone and they're sitting around and they're trying to follow it. We've had to do all kinds of things. But I think if we can break the digital divide, we can get people connected. There's a lot that they will gain. It's not just in times of crisis. Just imagine, in a village, if they have internet connection, and they have even one person with a lab. Think of the world of information we can access. Think of the kind of remote help we can provide. Think of how we can teach them to do some research on their own, how they can access so many teachers and so many resources. And think of the benefit of that. So we should be able to leverage technology to do different things and to leapfrog some of the problems of education that poorer countries like ours. And that's what I mean by empowering communities.
People that want to see the kinds of changes that you're talking about, what kind of advice would you give them? What should they be getting involved with? What should they be doing in order to see these changes? Because people might say, oh, there are so many organizations, but it seems like there's a lack of political will ultimately.
Education is such an important thing. It affects everyone, everybody's children. It has not become an election issue. The government continues to turn out these crappy schools and they still elect them. They don't seem to care. I think they've almost decided that, well, they're just going to be crappy. So I think, one, we should make it, we've got now right to education in India, it's become a fundamental right. And why aren't we protesting? Why don't we want better? Why aren't we demanding better schools? Why aren't we demanding more participation in how our children get educated? The trouble in a country like India is, the rates of poverty are so high. You know how most of them live in remote rural villages, 66% of our population, even now. Right. Then our literacy rate is still only 74%, in female much lower and rural literacy much lower. Now, these kinds of these populations don't think of education as opening any doors for them. So give it as much importance. It's enough that they send them to school sometimes. And the schools are so apathetic that they don't see the cost benefit isn't enough. So what's the point? I take them away from my farm work. I send them and the child learns nothing. The teacher doesn't even come. And the teacher doesn't care. She's normally urban. She's normally middle class. She's normally also Savarn. Not of the same caste as the children who come there. And so there's a sense of looking down on those children, not expecting much from them, conceiving of them minimally and then treating them minimally. Okay. So who should be advocating? Definitely, I feel a sense of responsibility as an educator, that we should be trying to influence the sector. And that's why we're there, right? And continuing to advocate for better system, which is why you asked me and I'm here talking to you. I'm hoping that it will have some kind of an influence somewhere. Then of course we should be advocating with politicians. Maybe we should have a law which says that education should be put. I was an advisor to the Rajasthan Chief Minister in her term. Now she's been out over a year, or nearly a year. And I know in 3 years, we really managed to bring about a lot of, we got the system to become functional. And I was hoping really that they also publicize that people will see that the government has done a lot for education and that would be a winning issue. And that would inspire other states to think that if we work hard at education, that it helps you win election. Well, it didn't happen. She didn't win. So that didn't work. But definitely other people. I think younger people need to be join organizations, advocate, lobby. Organizations like us, let's get together and make our voice heard where it matters. And for example, when I heard about this gender education being included, immediately I rang up someone who I think had some influence, and she called up someone and trying to get onto that. So join any platform that the government is offering. The other thing we have done as an organization, we put all our good teaching practices on made video lessons, 1,000 and more. Our channel is DSH Online. And so the government had set up, central government, a national teacher platform where they were taking digital resources from everywhere. So we give them ours free. In many cases, it's on YouTube. And so they took 900 of our videos, which are being shared across the country. So if you made good resources, you've got good curricula, good pedagogies, but share them widely with people. And now with this experience, people have learned and they have tried to help themselves. Self-learning has become almost, and parents have looked for all kinds of resources. So if they're out there, then people will reach out to them. And to other young people like you, in fact, with our DSH Online, we don't believe that professional teachers are the only ones who are good teachers. I know my son-in-law is a great teacher, by the way. He taught my granddaughter all about evolution in the simplest way when she was 4. He's talking Mr. Darwin, etc. Okay. So I told him, I said, hey, you should be making videos because you teach, you really explain difficult concepts very simply to young children. Why don't you do that? So there are many people like that. They're not teachers, but they know a lot. And that's what I meant by saying that you should have many teachers and not only professional teachers. So make these resources and post them online. Offer them to organizations like ours and say, hey, I don't mind participating with you. For example, we are developing a caste curriculum that will help deconstruct caste in children's minds. And so I put it on my Facebook. Oh, I got responses from many people, and they were all over the world. Some of them are our own alumni, and some were just young friends saying that, yes, we would be happy to participate. We'll send you resources, and they come on calls and we talk about it together. So I think many people need to be, first of all, thinking about it and say, okay, what should change in this? And what can I do to help? And there's always something you can do. There's always something. Make a video and send it. Send your ideas and say, this is what we want. And wherever you can have your voice heard, wherever you can advocate, well, go ahead and advocate. Even the local school council where you are. Maybe your niece goes there. Maybe your nephew goes there. Have a word. You need more people participate. You need to make it more democratic, very simply put. And of course, democracies should function. And so similarly, you need the education system to become a functional democratic system, which means many people participating, many people thinking together, many people critiquing and offering their resources.